Warning, the following podcast contains spoilers. So if you don't want to know that a zombie fights a live shark underwater, stop listening now.
The International House of Horror.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the International House of Horror podcast, a low-budget podcast for low-budget horror movies. As always, I'm your host, Rocco, aka the Mad Pancaker, and across from me is none other than Scary Perry.
Hello there.
How you doing over there, Scary Perry?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. You ready to dive into some hotcakes before we dive into our feature review?
Yes.
As always, start off with obituaries, because there's a couple big ones that happened between this and our last recording. Donald Sutherland passed away, star of the 1970s, I forget the exact year, remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and he's probably done some other stuff, horror-related stuff. He's done a lot of films, but...
Tigers?
I'm trying to think of...
You didn't say anything about no stinking tigers.
Yep, Kelly's Heroes. So yeah, real sad that he passed away.
Rest in peace.
So next, Shelley Duvall, star of The Shining. Real sad that she passed away too, from a very memorable movie. Then Martin Mull.
Oh, he passed away.
Yeah, Martin Mull passed away.
I didn't know that.
I can't think of anything horror-related he did off the top of my head, but he did the murder mystery comedy based off the board game Clue.
Yeah.
Played Colonel Mustard, which I think that counts. It's close enough for me to include him. Plus, he's probably done some roles in some other horror things, probably. I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, he probably had some minor roles.
Being such a big character actor. Last one that I have for this episode, and this is the big one. Director and producer Roger Corman, the king of the B-movie, passed away.
Oh.
That one's a big one. Roger Corman, very big name in the industry. Gave a start to a lot of actors and future directors and provided countless amounts of entertainment, plenty of future material for this podcast, put out many entertaining movies, and obviously he was the master of getting the most out of your budget. From a low-budget podcast to the king of low-budget producing, we're going to miss you, buddy. So that's it for the obituaries for this week. So first off, I don't think I talked about this last time, even though I had it then, but remakes of video games are all the rage lately, so they recently did a remake / rebrand / update of the Alone in the Dark video game. I kind of went into it blind. I'm just like, oh, they're remaking Alone in the Dark for like the millionth time. I'll give it a chance, especially with the modern Resident Evil remakes. Maybe they take a page out of their book and make a quality remake worthy of the original. But it was just kind of okay, rather mediocre.
You'd think games more just like cinematic with a couple of choices.
Survival horror, yeah, but
it's
also, I mean, there's some puzzles to it, but it's still, despite the fact that it tries to make it look like you're going back to different places, like your original survival horror games, it's still very linear. Certain parts don't become available to explore until the game wants you to. So it's kind of disappointing in that regards. The story's okay. It definitely has some heavy Cthulhu influences. I'm not too familiar with the original, but I don't think the original had any of that in it from what I've gathered and talked to other people about. Yeah, just kind of mediocre. You could definitely skip it. It's probably only like a 3, maybe 2.5 to 3. So, I mean, it's not the worst thing ever, but it gets repetitive after a while, and the twists and turns of it aren't that great. So, you could definitely skip it. So, you got any hotcakes this week, Perry?
I just got one.
You got one? All right, lay it on me.
I saw...
Serve up the hotcake.
Ghostbusters... I don't even know what that
Frozen Empire?
The Frozen Empire.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that last time.
The Forgettable Empire. I mean, Frozen Empire.
Yeah. Now you see where I'm coming from, huh?
Just when it boils down to it, it's nothing remarkable. I mean, it has some good Ghostbusters stuff, and seeing Andy Potts was good again. I'd probably give it a 3 out of 5 cannolis.
I think that's what I gave it. It's just, maybe I may even give it a 2.5. I can't remember. You'd have to listen to the last episode to hear my thoughts about it. It might actually be in, no, I don't think it's in this book, because this book is out of pages. So I think
just
it's on
nothing
my
like
sheets of paper jotted down.
Remarkable in the franchise.
Yeah, it takes forever to get there, huh?
Yes.
Like I said, it lays more pipe than a porn star. Has to lay a lot of pipe to get that story going. Plus, with that fire thing, that fire guy, I feel like that takes away from like the scientific aspect of the Ghostbusters developing technology to fight the ghosts and capture them, because that's like, oh, this guy could just do it with magic.
Yeah, and then
I think it's just one too many things. Sure, ghosts, depending on your point of view, whether or not ghosts are real. But I mean, that's you could suspend your belief on, and then science. They use science to.
I know Ghostbusters more of a horror comedy, and I know they use a comedian, Camille and Johnny in that role. It just it didn't work. For me. I'm just like
they missed the.
I mean, he has some other okay performances and some stuff, but this one was just.
Yeah, it really misses the mark in terms of the style of the Ghostbusters original humor, which is the problem I had with Ghostbusters Afterlife too, so it's not unique to this film. I don't know, it just feels like everybody tries to make a big budget Marvel cinematic movie now.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't really need
Which
to do that.
They have become.
And it's all about making sure you set up for another sequel.
They've become
another
very
big cinematic sequel.
Stale lately, and don't really have the desire to see them so much anymore because all of their forced comedy. But I digress. Back to you.
Yeah, so go to pickups for this episode. I forget why I picked these up. I think Vinegar Syndrome was having another sale.
I love those sales.
Yeah, I had to pick up some stuff. So first off, we have, and I talked about this before, I think on an episode, because I watched it on Tubi. I said the Tubi audio track didn't quite sync up with the film very well. I think I said that. So when it went on sale, I'm like, well, I definitely have to pick up a copy just to have it. I mean, it's a solid movie. I think I only gave it, I can't remember. I think that was one where I was like debating between 3 and 4 on, like where does it fall? But we have Madman from Vinegar Syndrome, another 80s slasher starring Galen Ross from Dawn of the Dead, and she's only done a few feature films, so this is one of them. So I think I actually now own all the films she's been in, at least in some sort of format, because I have Dawn of the Dead, I have Creepshow, and then I have Madman, so definitely recommend checking it out if you hasn't watched it. Up next, we have H.P. Lovecraft's From Beyond. Speaking of Dawn of the Dead alumni, it has Ken Foree in it, Jeffrey Combs, and Barbara Crampton. Produced by Charles Band, of course, and Brian Usna. Special effects by Mark Shawstrom, who did some work on Evil Dead 2. Who directed this? Oh, Stuart Gordon. Yes, it was another Stuart Gordon film. I couldn't think of the name off the top of my head. I had to find it on here. Music by Richard Band, of course, kind of like Reanimator. Great film. I have to rewatch it, but it's definitely at least a 4, probably even higher, because it's got some great special effects in it. And up next, the final Vinegar Syndrome pickup, Forgotten Gialli Volume 2. So every time they have a sale, I pick up one of their Forgotten Gialli volumes to add to the collection. So now 2 of these I've talked about because I've watched them on Tubi before. So The Girl in Room 2A and The French Sex Murders. So you can listen to previous hotcakes to hear me talk about that. The new one on here is that I haven't seen is My Dear Killer. And interestingly, there was 2 cuts to that film. Italian language cut, which is normal, but the only version of the English dub they had, which is a few minutes shorter, they had to source it from a tape, so the quality of that's not as good. And I was looking up, which version do I watch, because I didn't click on them to see the runtime, so I was just curious, I booted up the English language one for a second just to see what the tape master was like, and it wasn't very good. The restoration they did on the actual Italian version is solid, so yeah, then I found out something I wasn't expecting when Googling which version to watch, and I'm like, well, that's a thing in this movie. Then as I'm watching it, I kind of forgot that it was in there, and then it happened, and it's only briefly for a second, so you might have to be careful watching that one, for sure. It might not be up your alley if you don't want to see something like that. I'm surprised it actually got included on this, but I guess Vinegar Syndrome just is about keeping this thing as complete as possible. Even, let's just say, Italian child labor laws must be very different in their industry than ours. So yeah, you might want to be careful with that one. Chris Hansen might come to your door and and have a few questions for you, tell you to have a seat. Fair warning on that one. I'm guessing the English language cut probably doesn't have that scene in it. And up next, so I got some Scream Factory Shout Studios pickups because they were having, I think it was kind of a sale, but if you spend $100, you got something for free. You got to pick an item for free.
Well,
out of a certain select amount of items. I'm like, all right, well, let's see. I'll place an order. They got stuff on sale. I'll get to what I picked up for free here in a second, but we'll run through them. So first off, we have 1988 horror film, The Brain. David Gale from Reanimators in this. Yeah, The Brain, it's a fun little one. There's some pretty solid special effects in it. There's essentially this giant brain, goes around killing people, can make this kid hallucinate too. It's a little weird, but it's interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of cool visuals in it, cool special effects. So it's a fun one. I think I only gave it a 3 though. And this next one, though, is the 1981 slasher Hell Night. starring Linda Blair of Exorcist fame and Vince Van Patten. Linda Blair and Vince Van Patten and others stay in a haunted house on a pledge, but an actual slasher inhabits the house. A bit of a slow start, but has great atmosphere and a solid score, plus a cool backstory and killer. And I put down a low note that there's Chekhov's fence/gate that they keep referencing because they lock them inside the gate that surrounds this spooky haunted house that they're having them pledge in, that they try to play pranks on them in, but goes awry once we find out there's a real slasher. So this one's definitely worth checking out. I gave it 4 pancakes. I really like it. Next up, we have Tobe Hooper's Life Force.
Life Force.
I knew I wanted to pick this up sooner or later, and basically it's space vampires.
Space vampires.
I should say naked lady space vampires, because that's how the film starts off. Steve Railsback plays the main guy. Patrick Stewart's in here briefly. Peter Firth. Golden and Globus film. Oh, screenplay by Dan O'Bannon. We know him. Don Jacoby. Pretty big names in the industry, but it's a fun one. Definitely worth checking out. It's crazy. It's really insane, wacky film. I have to rewatch it to give it a proper rating, but it's definitely 4 or higher. It's pushing into the 5 territory. I'm not sure how high it would go up on the rating. Next up, we got Deadly Blessing from director Wes Craven. Sharon Stone's in it. Ernest Borgnine's in it. But essentially, Sharon Stone and these other people, they live in this rural community out in the country, farming life. Weird stuff starts happening around them, and this cult doesn't really like them because they're not part of the church. I was hoping for bigger things from this one because I've heard a lot about it, but it's just okay. It's not bad. I think the twist is a bit of a letdown towards the end because you're expecting some of the supernatural stuff with the church, but I don't think it pans out that way if I remember correctly. But I think I gave it a 3, so it's fun. It's definitely worth a watch, but it's not like Wes Craven's best work for sure. Then next up, we got the 4K Ultra HD/Blu-ray pack of Alligator.
Alligator.
Oh, we got Robert Forster in here, directed by Louis Teague. I think we mentioned that name somewhere else before, maybe in a hotcake or something. A story by John Sayles. He's done a lot of stuff. I can't remember if this is technically a Jaws ripoff, but it's essentially a giant alligator goes around terrorizing people, eating people. So I haven't watched it yet, but it's one that's been on my list for a while that I've wanted to watch and check out. Definitely going to check that one out. Up next, we got Witchboard from director Kevin S. Tenney.
Ouija board.
Kevin S. Tenney, of course, directed Night of the Demons. He also directed Witch Trap, which is not a sequel to this, but is like a sequel to this. Linnea Quigley's not in this one. She's in Witch Trap. I always get confused because they're all directed by the same guy. And Witchboard 2, which I haven't seen, but I've heard good things about. Tawny Kitane's in it. This guy brings over a Ouija board, or Ouija board, as, you know, the guy's insistent on calling it the proper pronunciation. They use it to communicate with the spirit on the board, but this one lady takes it too far and starts using it constantly. This ex of hers that brought over the board and her new boyfriend have to try and save her and defeat the demon, or the spirit that haunts the board. Because when they say it's the Witch Trap's not a sequel to this, well, then why did they bring back the same guy to play the sorcerer ghost guy? I think he's in Witchboard 2 as well. But it's a fun one. Definitely a 3.5 at least. I'd had to rewatch it to further assess it, but it's definitely worth checking out. I like Kevin S. Tenney's work, so the last one before we get to the freebie, we have Final Exam, another 1980s slasher. This is a fun one where a psycho breaks out of a mental institute. Go figure. That's like the opening to half the slashers out there. And then terrorizes a bunch of co-eds on a college campus. So it's a fun one.
We saw that together,
yes,
right?
Yeah. That's the one with the nerd Radish, who's a memorable character.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely like this one. I mean, it's not a spectacular slasher. I'm not saying it's going to be a 4, but it's definitely in the 3 and 3.5 range.
Yeah.
If you like slashers, you'll like it.
It wasn't that bad.
Plus, it has a very weird scene that you probably couldn't film anymore, where one of the college fraternities pulls a prank by having a bunch of guys roll up in a van with a ski mask on and start shooting people. Of course, it's all fake, though. It's just a prank because the people that they're shooting that get shot or have squibs, and then they drag them all into the van and drive off and have a good laugh at it. But obviously, with today's environment, you couldn't do that with school shootings and everything. So then up next, we got the freebie. And I was surprised this was even in the freebie category, because I'm looking at all of them. They're all other usual, typical Blu-rays that they have, in the $17 to $20 range. Which, it would be fine. Hey, I order $100 worth of product, I get a free movie. But they had a 4K on there. I'm like, whoa, that's piqued my curiosity. But not only was it just the 4K, it was the big 4K bundle that they always do when they first release stuff.
Okay.
It was the 4K/Blu-ray combo pack of Piranha, Joe Dante's Piranha, the original. I mentioned him before in a lot of stuff, but it's got Kevin McCarthy in there. He plays a character. Barbara Steele's in here, surprisingly. Dick Miller, Paul Bartel's in here. Definitely a Jaws ripoff in sort of a sense. A bunch of killer piranhas from a government testing facility that escape, get into a river, and then swim around and start terrorizing people just as this big celebration's coming up, kind of like Jaws with the 4th of July celebration. They got this big regatta or whatever on the river. A lot of notable names. Definitely at least a 4. Definitely worth checking out. Joe Dante classic. Oh, see, another screenplay by John Sayles. See, I told you he gets around. Oh, and speaking of Roger Corman executively produced this one. Real quick, got 2 more pickups. It was made to my attention that Walmart was going to start carrying some Vestron exclusive steelbooks of their Blu-rays and everything. And I saw on Twitter that 2 were coming up to be released that I wanted to pick up. So I had my brother keep an eye out for me. He snagged them for me. So first up, we have The Gate. I've talked about the director Tibor. I'm going to horribly mispronounce his name, Tibor Takics. I wrote a short stack on my website, themadpancaker.com. Check it out. A short stack blog review of another one of his movies, I, Madman. It's got great special effects. Essentially, these young kids play this heavy metal album backwards, and it's got this ritual to open up a gate. So they do the ritual and then open up a gate to hell, essentially, in this kid's backyard. And there's these little demon monsters running around. All sorts of crazy stuff starts happening to them. So they have to try and seal the portal and, defeat the master demon and send them all back. It's a fun one. It's also technically another one of those gateway horror films for little kids, because I think it might be PG-13, if I remember correctly.
I could check real quick.
As with any horror movie like that, you definitely want to screen it first before you show it to your kids, but it's definitely or unless you're like me and you just watch everything since you were 2 years old.
It's PG-13.
Okay. But there's definitely some scary moments, but there's not like too much in the terms of gore or anything. But it's definitely a fun one. I definitely think you should check it out. I need to rewatch it for a proper rating, but pushing close to a 4. Maybe a little bit better. Maybe a 3.5. Definitely some solid tier horror. There's some solid tier stop motion in there too, so it's a fun one. Then up next, the final pickup. So another Vestron Steelbook. Ken Russell's The Lair of the White Worm. And I believe I mentioned Ken Russell not too long ago. Or either that, I saw his name on Tubi on a movie I was getting ready to watch as director, and then watched it, and then I saw this. I'm like, oh, there's Ken Russell. Or maybe I watched a YouTube video and they were talking about Ken Russell movies or something. Basically, to sum up the premise of this one, there's this legend of I forget what the city they call it is, because it's based on a real life thing. It's either the Lambton worm or the Dampton worm. One of them's the real myth, and the other's the myth from the story, which is based off the Bram Stoker novel, The Lair of the White Worm, which he wrote and based it off the real life legend. So a worm is another name for dragon, for those that don't know. It's in reference to a dragon-like creature. The story is this years ago, according to legend, this guy's great-grandfather or something slayed the dragon. But now there's this lady who is very suspicious. I mean, if you look on the cover on her, kind of like a snake person, worships the dragon that's starting to bring it back through resurrection, through sacrifice. There's a lot of awesome visuals on this, a lot of awesome practical effects too. It's got some weird acid trip moments too, with these weird dream sequences, dream flashback sequences to like Roman times and everything. It's a very fun film, like I said, great effects, very well acted, very memorable, so it's definitely worth checking out. And I think these both came with codes. I know that one. There was the code in there. So, I mean, that voice message offer still stands. Leave us a voicemail at themadpancaker.com. Don't ask me how the Spotify works anymore. I think since they converted Spotify to podcasters into Spotify, you might be able to leave a voicemail on the app, but you can leave comments on episodes in the Spotify app now. And I definitely read your comments on air if you leave some comments on any of our episodes, so you can feel free to check that out. So if you leave us a voicemail, that offer still stands. I got plenty of codes to movies that I don't use because I just have the physical copies, so if you're willing to give those out to people. And before we dive into this week's review, the last episode was it wasn't supposed to be the cap off for the last season / last episode of last year, but it took so long to get to that point that it just kind of worked out that way, even though it came out this year. So we'll just call it the official end of the year episode, and we'll kick things off. So we always kick off with the top 10 quotes from reviews of 2023, plus early 2024, because 2 episodes I think came out in 2024 or something like that. It's something fun that I've always done where I come up with a top 10 list of quotes from movies that I've watched throughout the year. We'll kick things off. So starting with number 10, we got "Fuck you, Lucky Charms" from Alex from Leprechaun. Then number 9, we have "Where's the Beef" from the chantings of the 30-year-old classmates from Slaughter High. That's 2 sponsors that will probably blacklist us now. We're never going to get an official sponsor at this rate. Honorable mention to "Yeah, I rolled the joint with my own fat hand" from some random 30-year-old student from Slaughter High whose name I can't be bothered to look up. There's going to be a lot of repeats of movies on here because didn't quite get out as many episodes last time as we wanted, but that's okay. Mm-hmm. Up next at number 8, we have "I prayed that he would burn in hell, but in my heart I knew that hell would not have him" from Dr. Loomis from Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. Then at number 7, we have "For it is written, the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with her blood. And I saw her sit upon the hairy beast, and she held forth a golden chalice full of the filthiness of her fornications. And upon her forehead was written, Behold, I am the great mother of harlots, and all abominations of the earth." Christopher Lee from Howling 2, Your Sister is a Werewolf. Yeah, I'm not looking up his character's name either. I didn't feel like looking that up. Then at number 6, we got "Hey babies, it's time to slam down and get even. It's time to spit up and boil your hair." Diane from New Year's Evil. Honorable mention to "Bernie baby, do me a favor and drop a load and relax." Also from Diane from New Year's Evil. Up next, another New Year's Evil one. We have "Tickets, tickets, let's have your tickets, tickets, let's have your tickets." From the security card with a better stash than Scary Perry from New Year's Evil.
Hey.
Up next, number 4, we have "Barry fucking Manilow. You gotta be kidding me." From Skip from Slaughter High, not to be confused with Skip from April Fool's Day, which is still kicking myself that I didn't realize that both movies that take place on April Fool's Day, and originally were going to have the name April Fool's Day, both had a character named Skip in them for some reason. I didn't get a chance to make any jokes or callbacks to the April Fool's Day episode in that one. Number 3, about sticking a stake in my dead sister. Ben from Howling 2, Your Sister is a Werewolf. It just sounds so bad. Even though that's not what he means about it. He means an actual stake for sticking werewolves for some reason, even though I thought you staked vampires. Listen to our episode to hear us talk about that. Number 2, I'm never sensible if I can help it. Tina from Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. Quote that perfectly sums up that movie and franchise trajectory at that point. And then number 1, April fucking Fool, you motherfuckers. I showed you, me, Marty Ranson. Of course, Marty Ranson from Slaughter High. So that's our top 10. I'm looking forward to writing another top 10 for next year, or this year's episodes, to give you next year. And that brings us to today's episode, our review of One Cut of the Dead from 2017, Japanese zombie horror comedy starring Takayuki Hamatsu, Mao, literally just one word, Mao, Harumi Shuhama, Kazuaki Nagaya, Manabu Hosoi, Hiroshi Ikehara, Suntaro Yamazaki, Shinichiro Osawa, Yoshiko Takahara, Miki Yoshida, Sakina Asamori, Ayana Goda, and Yuzuki Akiyama. And a theme sung by Mayumi Yamamoto. Is that any relation to Isoroku Yamamoto? And directed by Shinichiro, I'm going to horribly pronounce this because double vowel Japanese last name, Shinichiro Ueda, Ueda. Forgive my pronunciations. I know not too much about pronouncing Japanese names, just a little bit to make me dangerous. I guess I'll read the back of the box sleeve. And I did pick up the Shudder Blu-ray steelbook of it as a random. I watched it through unscrupulous means, cough, cough, YouTube, cough, originally. But I figured I'll pick it up just to have it, just to make it easier for when I'm doing the proper review. That way I don't have to worry about dealing with any YouTube stuff or, it gets taken down. The IndieWire says the best zombie comedy since Shaun of the Dead. Is it? We'll find out. Basic premise, it says on the back of the sleeve here, back of the box for the steelbook. While shooting a low-budget zombie film in an abandoned warehouse, the crew find themselves caught between actual zombies and a mad director who won't stop rolling. If you think you know what happens next, think again. Filmmaker Shinichiro Yuda, maybe that's how you pronounce it, we'll roll with it, turns the film on its head more than once for one of the wildest, funniest, and most surprising zombie movies of all time. Rue Morgue magazine called it one of the most entertaining zombie films ever made, a marvelously good time. Again, we'll see if it lives up to that hype. It says during the credits here and on the back of the thing that it was inspired by Ghost in the Box, a play.
Yes, I'll have more on that after.
Sure. Yeah, I have no idea what the play's about, but it shows it in the credits, and it shows it on the back of the sleeve here, so.
In Japan, it's either called Don't Stop the Camera or Don't Stop Shooting.
Yeah, those names aren't as good.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that's their, literal translation.
So let's dive in. We open with a zombie named Ken shambling toward a woman in blood-stained clothing in an abandoned factory. She's trying to fend him off with a hatchet, but she's backed into a corner. She tries to plead with him to stop, and he does? Wait, why does zombie Ken stop? Maybe he's used to taking orders from Japanese Barbie? Get ready for the Barbie references in this a lot, because heaven forbids I'm not learning anybody's name in this. If I can't be bothered to learn half the people in Italian giallos and Italian horror movies' names because they all just kind of blend in together, I'm not learning anybody's name in this movie either, for the most part, with a few exceptions. There's just too many to keep track of. Her reprieve is short-lived, as after the comedy has worn off, the dramatic music kicks back in and he resumes his approach. All her pleas fall on deaf ears, and rather than defend herself, she lets Zombie Ken take a bite out of her while she tells him she loves him. What the heck is this? Who does she think she is? Not Tina from Return of the Living Dead Part 2? Because somehow Tom Matthews is in that movie again and has a different girlfriend. It's just easier to call her not Tina because I can't remember her name either. Then the director yells, "Cut." Wait, the movie is over already? Check please? The camera pans over to the director and crew, and when one of them asks how many takes they did, a lady says 42. Wait, so shouldn't it be called 42 Cuts of the Dead? This movie title lies harder than The Killer is one of 13. The director just stares for a moment before walking over and shoving Ken aside and cornering the bloody woman. He scolds her for acting scared instead of actually being scared. But she doesn't get it, so he shouts in her face and even slaps the wall repeatedly. Ken tries to intervene, but the director turns around and slaps him, grabbing him by his collar and yelling, "Fuck off, you little shit." Man, I didn't know Japanese George Romero was so demanding and difficult to work for.
So that scene where he's berating the actress is actually a sly reference to Stanley Kubrick famously bullying Shelley Duvall, rest in peace, on The Shining.
The lady assistant intervenes and suggests they take a break. Does that mean it's time for us to take a break? Nah, it's too early in the episode so far. We'll keep rolling. The director pushes his way past the others and storms off, while the lady actor is frozen in shock from the ordeal. The others wander off, leaving Ken to talk with his co-star. He tries to console her, but she says the director is right and she's just a lousy actor. She's doing a better job than Andrew McCarthy and Kim Cattrall's relative in Nightmare City. That just makes me wish we were reviewing that movie right now. She tells him that when he attacks her, to do it harder. No comment. Then he asks if he can come tonight. These translated subtitles may not be 100% accurate. Now, did you watch the Japanese language or did you watch the English dub, Perry?
I actually don't remember.
Oh, okay.
I got it off a streaming service. It wasn't YouTube.
Yeah, I know on YouTube
when I
it was
the
Japanese.
Movie, I don't know why, because it was like a free trial, and I'm like, well, I might as well just watch it with the...
Okay.
I think it was...
I didn't even know there was an English dub until I popped in the Blu-ray, and then I saw the option for it. I'll just stick with the Japanese, because that's how I watched it. Plus, the subtitles will give me some funny material to work with, like that line.
I don't think it was an English dub that I watched, but I'm not 100% sure.
But anyways, yeah, not sure if those subtitles are 100% accurate. But
yes, folks, my timeline is right.
Hold on a minute. Nope, they are, because he asked if he could take a hot bath together. Maybe he did beat it as the sexual innuendo. I don't know. They wander upstairs to join the others, and the lady assistant agrees that the director's crazy. Oh, just you wait, lady. You haven't seen nothing yet. Ken shows that the axe prop is actually a real axe. Low-budget movies. Well, you can't afford fake props, so you just use the real thing. Speaking of props, a guy wanders over and says the director wants all of the fake blood on the roof. Yeah, the roof. Man, we could be reviewing Dawn of the Dead right now. The original, of course. If you're listening to this episode, Jesse and Josh, the remake is another good example of a movie I find overrated. But that's a story for another episode. If you haven't listened to our interview with the director and special effects / makeup artist of Demon Behind the Glass, check it out.
Hey, Rocco.
What?
Zack Snyder.
Don't speak that name in my presence ever again.
All right.
It turns out the director went into debt to make the film. So that's why he's so uptight. And the factory they were filming in? Well, the army used here, nice typo there, subtitles, supposed to be used her, for some experiments on bringing the dead back to life, because of course the building's female. So this is kind of like Japanese Umbrella? Wait, I'm sorry. That's a Japanese video game technically. So I guess that's just regular Umbrella?
You mean Biohazard?
What? No, that's the name of the game, not the name of the corporation.
Well, no, but I just meant to call it the Japanese
Resident
call
Evil
Resident
was made
Evil.
by Capcom.
Yeah, but they call it Biohazard.
And the company's name is Umbrella.
I know,
in both versions.
but I'm just trying to say the game's called Biohazard in Japan.
The joke was that Japanese Umbrella would still just be regular Umbrella.
All right.
Their conversation is interrupted by a loud door closing jump scare, but it's right back to the small talk as Ken asks the assistant lady if she has any hobbies. She's been learning self-defense, so she demonstrates, including her palm defense. Nice moves there, Bruce Lee. And I said Lay, not Lee. Look it up. Oh, good old Bruceploitation.
Oh boy.
We have an awkward pause. Then bald guy carrying the boom mic walks outside for a second, but we don't have time to follow him as we are back with the guy with the glasses who took the blood to the roof. Look, they've only said one person's name so far, and I'm not looking all these up. That's Scary Perry's job, right? Do you know any of these characters' names in this movie other than Ken? Who I'm just calling Ken because that's the only thing they refer to him by.
I'm not gonna butcher Jeff. Well,
I don't mean the actors' names. I mean the characters' names in the movie.
Yeah, the character's name.
You don't have to listen.
Neo or the palm lady. Neo.
We'll get to it later.
Neo. I don't know the name.
It's okay.
Okay.
He's trying to have a smoke when one of the crew dressed as a zombie bumps into him. He thinks it's just a joke, but then the zombie crew member vomits on him, like the zombies in the first Resident Evil game. Wait, you expect me to say I'd rather be reviewing the Resident Evil movie? Hard pass. I want the Romero version or nothing at all. If we ever get around to that, to reviewing the Resident Evil franchise, I'll have a lot to say about George A. Romero and the history of that film's making. Surprise! He's actually a zombie and bites Glasses Guy on the neck. The camera turns around and heads for the doorway, and a severed hand flies through, scaring the three inside. And at this point, I have this question. Is the guy carrying this camera really there or not? Like, is this just supposed to be our point of view observing the events, or is this an actual cameraman who's also filming and filmed the first scene while they had another camera from another angle filming that scene? We did see them show another camera guy earlier, like I said, with a different camera, so I'm not sure. Moments later, Glasses Guy stumbles in with one less arm. They think he's a zombie for the movie now, but he falls over dead. Assistant lady thinks it's a prank, but they quickly discover, nope, he's dead. They start freaking out, and the zombie crew guy stumbles in to spew some more vomit and attack the female actress. Meanwhile, the boom mic guy just sits there and watches. Now that's my kind of hero. Speaking of the boom mic, Ken runs up and uses it to push the zombie back outside, and he locks the door. Welcome to the I can't believe this is happening scene, but that's quickly interrupted by one armed Glasses Guy who has reanimated as a zombie and chases them around the factory. They trick him to run through another exit and lock him out too. And who just happens to be behind them with a camera? The director who's filming everything. Okay, I'm going to ask this again because it keeps confusing me. Is our POV really supposed to be a person filming, or is it just our POV like I said earlier?
I don't know.
I'll probably ask that like at least 5 more times because it's very confusing.
I gotta watch it again. I mean, I can't give you a good answer right now.
The director is going to shoot a zombie movie one way or another, and he says they are going to keep rolling. So he's like the theater director from Stage Fright when he locks them all in to keep rehearsing when the madman's running around inside. Man, we could be reviewing that movie. Oh, hold on. Wait, that's not a zombie movie. Wrong Mikel Suave film. His energy is awesome. He's just shouting the whole time at them. I love this director.
Yeah, he's great.
He serves up some exposition, but Boom Mic Guy tries to sneak out before he's bored to death. While the director tries to stop him so he can hear how great his script is and how he threw the blood off the roof, he slips by and out the door and screams. The director runs out after him, but not before shouting into our POV to keep filming. So, our POV is a real person holding a camera? Or is the actual cameraman standing right behind the POV cameraman and filming? I don't know. This is
like some Inception stuff?
Yes. Okay. With the director gone...
It's really 3 cameras.
Probably. They close the door, and they all check to see that they all are uninjured. Then we have the obligatory no cell reception scene every modern horror movie has, before the lady assistant serves up even more exposition about some blood spell ritual. Would you like to know more? Too bad, because the director is banging on the door to let him in, saying he's alone. They run over to the door and open it, but surprise, the director was lying, as he now has zombie boom mic guy in his arms and yells, "Action!" before shoving the zombie at them. The director has gone apeshit. Woolie's gone apeshit.
That's for sure.
And I love it. This director is the best guy in this movie. He's the best.
Yes, he is.
They are screaming while the director is ecstatic at how great and authentic the scene is. Also, the boom mic guy doesn't look too much like a zombie. He just has some blood on his shirt. Assistant Lady has them push the zombie toward her, and she cleaves him with that real axe from earlier. Of course, our POV camera guy failed to capture it on screen, instead filming the blood splattering on the Assistant Lady, but pans over just in time to see a severed head that totally wasn't placed there off camera. While the others are still screaming, the director thinks, "This is fun-fucking-tastic," as the subtitles put it. Slow down there, director. This is our first episode, and we can't have all the next batch of top 10 quotes coming from this one. However, Assistant Lady has gone apeshit. Woolie's gone apeshit, as she kicks the headless corpse repeatedly. The director is too distracted with all this great, authentic footage he's getting to notice Kent sneak up behind him and whack him over the head. They make a run for one of the cars outside, with Assistant Lady running interference. Now blood splattered on the lens from Assistant Lady killing that zombie, so he takes this time to wipe it off with a towel. Wink, wink, wink. I have some more to say about that later. So he has time to wipe off the lens, but he stood around and did nothing when they were being attacked? They managed to get a van and hop in, but there are no keys. Who has the keys? Why, one-armed glasses zombie guy who is now beating on the window, and the other door opens just in time for the director to yell, "Action!" Even better, he reaches for the other door so the zombie can drag the lead actress out of the van. She takes off and the zombie and POV camera guy give chase. But the zombie manages to grab and shove her into the camera guy, and he drops the camera. Is somebody going to pick up this camera? No? So the ground cam is just our perspective for the rest of the movie? Okay, then. They continue to struggle on the ground, so they stay in frame, but then they run away. So I guess we're just going to stare at the ground until someone walks by for the rest of the movie, huh? Oh wait, the POV camera guy finally picks it back up, and we are following their chase again. Again, he didn't help her. He just watched and waited to pick the camera up. So her and the POV run into some passageway, but when they reach the other side, the other zombie shows up. Now she's trapped between two zombies. But Ken comes to the rescue and knocks down one of them, allowing her and the POV to escape. Oh, she's also limping because she twisted her ankle because, suspense and stuff. They head back to the factory and plead for Assistant Lady to let them in. She takes a while to do so, but hey, she still managed to be quicker about it than Delores coming over to take our order.
Hey.
Come on, Delores.
Where's she at?
Pick up the slack.
Delores, where the hell you at? I'm going to the gas station. Getting
There you
stuff.
go. They catch their breath, and Ken snagged the keys from the zombie, but lead actress has a wound on her leg, and the assistant notices. Is it a cut? Or a zombie bite? Who knows? But Assistant Lady has gone even more apeshit. Woolie's gone apeshit, and is willing to throw her under the bus. Or axe, in this case, as she wants to dome her with it. Ken tries to restrain her, but she uses the Bruce Lee POM technique to escape his grasp. So the leading lady runs away, but outside she runs into the zombies again. Seriously though, there are only 2 zombies. What is so hard about this? I could fend off 2 zombies in my sleep. And as she's running, the director pops out of a door yelling, "Action!" again. I would buy a talking action figure of this guy that just screamed action. You push a little button on his back, he says, "Action!" Also, it's unusual for me to include foreign language quotes in the top 10 quotes list, but this one is so good. This is one of those times where they co-op English into their language and they use the English word, so it's spoken in English.
Yeah.
She climbs some stairs to escape, but the assistant decks the director in pursuit. Now on the roof, she stumbles to the ground, and the assistant is ready to put her down. But Ken comes to the rescue again, but she uses another one of her Bruce Lee moves on him, on his arm, and yells to stop her and stop the camera. What? That doesn't sound like something you would say in a real zombie attack. Some noise and yelling tells us something has happened, but the camera was too busy zooming in on the screaming leading lady. We hear some blood gush off screen from some sort of wound. But who died? The disadvantage of this one cut is that most of the gore happens off screen, because obviously it would be very difficult to have all these severed limbs and head effects ready to go on camera without panning away and then panning back to the dummy or the prop version of somebody's arm or something like that, but it works. Turns out, Assistant Lady took the axe to the brain, and Ken embraces the lead actress, but she freaks out and tells him to go away, because reasons? Before he can follow her, he's pulled off screen by a Tempo magazine stinger and screams. Finally, it only took the whole film. Wait a minute. We're still only like 25 minutes in. The leading lady heads downstairs, and we see the 2 zombies lying down on the job. She hides in a shed with a bloody star on it. Solid choice. It's at this time that I'm thinking this would be great if this was all a planned fake out, and then a real zombie attack happens, and it becomes a one-cut found footage style zombie film. Plus, then you would have the beginning fake out, followed by the second fake out that they're using to pretend like it's a real zombie attack, only to be followed by the real zombie attack. Then it would almost be like the nightmare became a reality. No, I guess I already mentioned that we could be reviewing Nightmare City. I'm not going to make that joke again. While hiding, she inspects her wound and it peels right off because it's just special effects makeup. Wait, you couldn't tell the difference between an actual wound you would have felt versus special effects makeup stuck to your leg? Fail. She hears something coming, so she ducks behind a barrel, but a Temple magazine stinger on a zombie leg shuffles into the frame. Did it see her? Well, if he exists, it certainly would have saw POV camera guy, since he's standing out in the open to film her gasp. Really, is this camera guy real? I'm going to keep asking this. Or just her POV? Why is the continuity with this so hard and inconsistent? Anyways, the zombie wanders away, so she waits and then heads out and picks up an axe. She notices Ken on the stairs and follows him to the roof. Okay, maybe camera guy is real, because he makes sure to keep the camera focused on her butt as she climbs the stairs. Because why else would you do that unless you're real? On the roof, Ken is just standing there. I guess his name is actually Ko? Because this shows it one time in the subtitles.
Yeah.
But I'm not changing my notes now, so he's officially Ken.
He's Kenko.
Yeah, Kenko, or it's one of those.
No, it's Ken and,
Is it
and
Kenko?
Ko.
Okay, it's just both. We'll go with that. She runs up to him. He turns around and raises his arms and shuffles towards her. He's a zombie now. For real this time. Okay, maybe. As this happens, the assistant springs back up with an axe in her head, and they both scream. Nailed it. Well, the fake parts anyways. Let's see if I'm right about the real zombie attack. In my defense, I didn't read much into this film beforehand. I'd seen spoiler-free reviews, but thought, well, a horror comedy was a serious storyline, i.e. like it was real horror comedy, more akin to like Return of the Living Dead. You know, that's a horror comedy, but it's still a serious zombie film. Everything happening is real.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of went in blind. Apparently, she falls over dead again, and we have the closing image matching the opening image, as the creeping zombie has the terrified woman with the axe cornered again, this time on the roof. Yeah, the roof. Oh, wait, I already made the rather reviewing Dawn of the Dead joke too. My mistake. This would be a perfect time to actually have some movie sound bites to play. I'd be playing that, yeah, the roof, from Dawn of the Dead quote over and over. As she begs him, the best character is still in this movie, as the director runs up and compliments her for legitimately being scared and with real tears this time instead of using fakes. I guess that was her arc, to actually be able to cry on cue. He tells her to make it the last motherfucking take. I knew it! I knew there was more than one cut. I get it, because he says another take.
Yeah.
She pleads for him to stop, and he does just like before, along with the dramatic music. Then the music resumes, and he shambles forward again, and then stops. And then he resumes his approach again, then stops. How many times is Ken going to stop? The camera zooms in on our final girl. Well, okay, the director is still alive, but we know what they were going for. And she looks at the mannequin that they just had enough time to set up out of frame, and tells it she loves him before decapitating it. Huh. And Andrew McCarthy and Kim Cattrall had so many Japanese relatives. The director scolds her and tells her to follow the script, but she goes apeshit. Woo, he's gone apeshit, and chases after him with the axe. He hops over a ledge to a lower section of the roof, so he can be out of the camera's view as he's hacked to bits and blood squirts in the air. Exhausted, she walks over to another part of the roof, covered in a blood pentagram, where she stares into the distance as the camera rises above her, and the title fades in over the image, and we roll credits? Wait, the movie is over? Well, sure, check please, I guess, but what is the extra hour for then? Oh, I know, maybe it's time for the real zombie attack now, just like I predicted.
Mm-hmm. Is it?
Also, final girl, you just got complimented on your acting from the director. Quit staring at the camera, please. Someone yells cut. And speaking of cut, I think now's a good time for a break. We'll be right back. And we're back.
A dinosaur story.
So after someone yells cut, the screen fades to white before giving us a city establishing shot with a 1 month ago title card. Wait, another cut? You mean the movie lied? Oh yeah, we could have reviewed The Return of the Living Dead. And 1 month ago, WTF, can't we just have a linear story, please? Why can't all stories just start at the beginning and go through to the end? Why do we have to have a flashback? We cut to a roof. At this rate, we may just get to 42 cuts. And the director is shooting some scenes for something when suave producer with a better stash than Scary Perry walks up to him and asks him to talk to him later. So they go and talk with another lady, a lady producer, and we learn that he mainly directs short videos, commercials, karaoke videos, etc. And we find out the director's slogan is fast, cheap, but average. Usually, the three qualities of things, you get two of them, so it's usually either fast and good, but not cheap, good and cheap but not fast, or fast and cheap but not good. So I guess he's a step up from the norm because he's fast and cheap but average, so he's a step up from not good?
Yes.
Turns out they are starting the Zombie Channel and want him to direct a zombie film for its premiere. The premise? While shooting a zombie film, the crew are attacked by real zombies. I just watched the film. Why are we talking about this? There are two features that make the film unique. First, fuck it, we'll do it live. As Bill O'Reilly would say, a live broadcast. Kind of like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Oh man, we could be reviewing Victoria Justice right now in her live-action Rocky Horror Picture Show role. What? I don't care that it's not a zombie movie. I've been referencing zombie movies I'd rather review. Not that I'd rather review them, that's just a joke. The second, and more exciting, read marketable feature, one take with no cuts. Wait, so should it be called No Cuts of the Dead then? The director laughs it off as a joke, but they are dead serious. The movie's pun, not mine. I didn't come up with that one. The director stares in shock with his mouth agape before cutting to another one-cut title card. Look, I'm not sure I needed the behind the scenes on the origin of this movie, or did they just take out all the usual special features and add them to the movie to make it a feature-length film? And we have credits again? How many movies are we actually reviewing in this episode? It feels like 2 movies at this point.
I got something real quick. The title of, not this movie, but the movie that they want the director to make, it's called True Fear.
Is it mentioned in the movie? I can't remember. In the subtitles, maybe? I'm not sure. But that sounds
That's
familiar.
the name of the movie.
Yes, I understand. Yes,
okay.
yeah, I understand
True
that. It sounds familiar, so it sounds like it might have been mentioned in the movie or something. Maybe briefly. It could have been very passing.
Been yeah.
Especially with subtitles, and they're not speaking the English language, so you could quickly blink and you miss it if you miss the subtitle. It just sounds familiar, so it might have been mentioned in the film.
You know, Scary Perry's got the inside scoop.
After that, we cut. One cut my ass, to a TV playing a PUM instructional video, and crazy assistant lady is practicing the maneuver like an 80s housewife watching an aerobicized video. Turns out, she's the director's wife. Then their daughter, Mao, played by Mao, runs through and leaves. Oh, those mischievous teenagers. The wife wants the director to keep an eye on her, so it turns out she works on a film crew, but scolds a child for not crying for real and using the fake tears. Wow, where did I see that before? She also says a line about acting in battlefields that was said earlier in the movie with the movie too, if I remember correctly. She's also wearing a Scarface t-shirt for some reason. She yells at her director for not making the child cry, and nearly gets into fisticuffs with the mother before her father intervenes. She's fired, and her father tries to talk to her about compromising. She is going to need to make a living, but she storms off and throws the bottle of fake tears at him. This was a horror movie, right? What the hell am I watching now?
A drama.
Yeah. Cut to back at home. Groan. They are watching that rooftop scene that he filmed, but the daughter changes the channel, and on TV is the actor that plays Ken, which just so happens to be Mao's current favorite actor. Look, no one will ever supplant Tom Atkins as my favorite actor, and Victoria Justice as my favorite actress. Well, except for maybe Edwidge Fenech, or however you pronounce her name. Where's Hal and his friend Arch with the DeLorean when you need it? Go back in time, hook up with Edwidge Fenech as much as George Hilton did. In their interview, he reveals that his next role is a horror film. I think it's safe to say he's not starring in this movie then. Because this movie's anything but horror now. The director flips through the cast sheet, and look who's on it, Ken! Wait, I thought he said he was starring in a horror movie. This has been anything but for the past 10 minutes. Now we cut, another cut, to the first reading room and meet our cast of the characters for the movie, and learn about them. You have the final girl, who's famous for some weird love beam thing she does in some pop star role. Ken, the haughty actor who is reading too deep into the script and think it subtly deals with racism. Yeah, because everyone's Japanese in it. Real subtle. To be fair, I don't know if there's any different types of ethnicity of Japanese people, so take that as you will. I'm sure there probably is, but I have no clue.
I don't know.
Then we have the vomit zombie guy, who is an alcoholic and his hands shake. Glasses guy, who is the awkward, bashful assistant director. Bald boom mic guy, who complains about his bottled water being hard water, as he can only drink soft water, because if he drinks hard water, he gets explosive diarrhea. There's a guy in a Hawaiian shirt that's supposed to be the director. Spoiler, considering the actual director ends up playing the role, I'm sure he's going to leave the cast shortly. The makeup lady busts in with her baby. Don't worry, she's a quiet baby. Well, Shakespeare couldn't foreshadow harder than that. 20 seconds later, and the baby is crying. That didn't take long. So now we get all of the behind-the-scenes shit show of the production. Final Girl's agency won't let her be covered in vomit. Ken has problems with the script. Drunk vomit zombie guy is drunk. The baby is still crying. And why does the baby have a bib with a monster's face on it? It's like really weird to have something like that on a child. I mean, it's like a cartoonish type monster, but still, you don't want to scare a kid. And is this supposed to be a documentary on how this disaster production was made? Or is this supposed to be a horror comedy? Glasses guy speaks up saying there are many types of zombies to try to comfort Ken, but Ken puts the nerd in his place. I mean, yeah, like you have your radioactive zombies from Nightmare City. You have your TV zombies, as in they literally come out of a TV like Video Dead. Your marrow zombies, your headshot immune zombies for Return of the Living Dead, etc. And of course, we have a montage of the rehearsals. Cut to the house, because the name of this movie means nothing at this point, so we could dump some exposition on how Mom was an actress. And Mal is wearing the Shining t-shirt, so I guess her thing is wearing t-shirts of popular American movies. Apparently, the mother stopped acting because she got a little too into her roles. Anyways, cut again to more rehearsing, and the shit show continues as Ken is still being a diva. Final girl wants to use fake tears for the opening scene, and bald explosive diarrhea guy wants to know where the toilets are and how many. And this is a funny thing for the subtitles. Also, the lady calls them portaloos. If I remember correctly, loo is a euphemism for restroom in Great Britain, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, the loo.
Go to the loo, if I remember correctly. Weird
it's
that
not French, no. It's one of those.
I'm going to the loo. It's interesting that they went with that version of the subtitle rather than your normal Americanized subtitle of, Porta John, but neither here nor there. Well, Porta John, Porta Potty, whatever you want to call it. Porta John, it's classier.
Potty John Lou.
The director watches all of this and sighs. On a positive note, drunk guy isn't drinking for the rest of the shoot, and we get some background about how he's losing his daughter because of his drinking. Blah, blah, I don't care. Can we get back to the horror comedy at some point? Of course, he breaks down and starts crying. So cut to the director crying because his movie is a lie. Hey, it's okay, buddy. You can always just slap Alan Smithy's name on this train wreck. Anyways, his wife asks him for a favor, but there's no time to learn what, as this film has to live up to its name. Many cuts of the dead, and cut to the abandoned factory shooting location. They actually green screened 2 of the crew walking to the building in the scene. It's clearly obvious. Are you telling me no one thought to shoot some of this location stuff for this part of the film while they set up or finish the other stuff? So Mal and Mom are there to watch, and the crew are setting up and going over final preparations. Well, we already know what happens next, so we could skip right to the end. Check, please. No? Okay, fine, we'll keep going. So things start to go wrong. Imagine that. First, the producer sent them a congratulatory bottle of sake for the production, and the drunk is eyeing it up. Next, the bald guy accidentally takes a sip from the wrong water bottle, even though he spits it out. It's too late. That hard water has set him up for some atomic diarrhea. The big news, there was a car accident. But the baby mama and the guy who was supposed to play the director character were riding together in it because they were having an affair. And that leaves them down 2 cast members. Oh no. The producer says the show must go on. So what are they going to do? Well, the director dons the Hawaiian shirt and becomes the director. It's okay. He did some acting in high school. As for the makeup artist, Mal volunteers her mother. After all, she was an actress, and besides, she's the only one who read the script. Kind of like Adam Driver? I know what you're waiting for me to say, and no, I won't. Let's never speak of that movie again. I'll have to get our Patreon numbers up higher before that becomes an option. By the way, support us on Patreon at patreon.com/themadpancaker. And you could choose a review, just like this review, which was chosen by our patron, Michael Perry. Any relation to Scary Perry? Maybe.
Huh?
Oh wait, I forgot your brother's Scary Pod. Never mind. The director/husband thinks it's a bad idea. But hey, there's no one else to play the part, so cut to our introduction to the cast. More like infinite cuts of the dead, am I right? Diva Ken has had enough and thinks the production should be canceled. I think I rim shot too soon there. The director strokes his ego, convincing him to go on and continue the show. That's not the only problem, as atomic diarrhea is clutching his stomach and heads outside. And the drunk has the shakes. Uh-oh. I have a feeling that bottle of sake's empty now. Plus, the camera guy's back is starting to bother him. I wouldn't say it's a miracle this show was completed, but we already watched the finished product, so we all know it will be shot. A bit anticlimactic, don't you think, Scary Perry?
Yes.
The director gives some words of encouragement before the stock porno music kicks in, and then it's time to start the show. Although I thought that already happened an hour ago. They filmed the first shot, but then yell cut. What the hell, another one? Oh, wait, that's actually what happened in the show. Sorry, I thought I was watching a different movie, because I sort of am. So the show starts to unfold, just like it did an hour ago. Although we see different angles, scenes in the producer's room, and scenes from the on-location ad hoc studio. It turns out the director is improvising the scene where he yells at the final girl. He's unleashing all of his pent-up frustrations with the production and cast on her, and he's had enough of Ken when he slaps him. As we see more of the behind the scenes, the drunk drank all the sake, like I called it, and he's stumbling around as he's rounded up for a zombie makeup, and they send him on his way. But one of the crew finds him passed out outside, and the director rushes over to slap him awake. That loud bang on the door? Turns out it was the director carrying the drunk, and they fall into the door. So the director has them write on placards and flashes them to the cast to keep improvising while they straighten things out. And that's how the question about the mother's hobbies comes up, because they're stalling for time. Back outside, we see that the director is propping up the drunk zombie, Weekend at Bernie's style, for the attack on Glasses guy. Hey, you know who was in Weekend at Bernie's? Don Calfa, who played Ernie the Mortician in The Return of the Living Dead. Wait, I already made a I'd rather watching move reference for that one. Speaking of which, Andrew McCarthy's also in Weekend at Bernie's. The Mannequin Connection jokes just write themselves at this point. Turns out that it was real vomit projected onto the glasses guy. To be honest, I figured there was a 50-50 chance of that anyways. He passes out again, so they have to pick him back up for his next scene so he can spew onto the final girl. Now we're at the part where bald atomic diarrhea IBS guy wanders out, but he's going to have to hold it in and they shove him back in. Of course, as we saw earlier, he pushes past the director and heads outside, because when you gotta go, you gotta go. While the old lady producer is eating it up back at the station, producer Better Stash and Scary Perry has the crew ready up the technical difficulties card for broadcasting, just in case the shit continues to go sideways. Or down Baldy's leg, as I'm sure it is right now.
Oh boy.
The director yelling at the camera to keep rolling? Not an improvisation, just him breaking character. Finally, I have closure that POV camera guy isn't supposed to exist. The director checks to see what's wrong with the bald guy, and he tells him that it's coming out, specifically saying poop. Nothing says true comedy gold like a poop joke. On an unrelated note, how's that gas station bathroom treating you over there now, Scary Perry? Is it back up to standards?
Yeah, I go take quickies over there every now and then.
The producer is ready to throw in the towel and put up the technical difficulties card. But Mal stops them and takes over the production team, barking out orders to bring bald IBS guy back as a zombie earlier than anticipated. The improv continues as they instruct them with another card to check their cell phone and skip a few lines and that they are bringing bald guy back as a zombie. Cut to bald guy pooping, complete with stock poop noises. I think that's one cut this movie didn't need. I'm going to refrain from making an atomic bomb joke. Yeah, it's a little, probably too sensitive. They rush over a bald guy's prop head just in time for the crew person carrying it to duck and roll to avoid being in the camera footage. And I can't tell if that's just rust on the door or fake blood splatter from previous rehearsals or takes. The one side of the door isn't really rusted, but the other side, especially by like the frame, there's like splatter stuff on there. It looks like it could be rust, but it could also be blood splatter because that's also like the direction that they throw the blood onto the mother when she swings the axe. That's like the direction they throw the blood at, so because it splatters on her face. So maybe, obviously they go through probably some rehearsals before they filmed it.
Yeah.
They run to the van, and then the scene where the camera falls to the ground happens. Remember those back issues the cameraman complained about? Well, when the zombie bumped into his camera, he went down for the count with his back pain. So the one female crew member picks it up and takes over. Off camera, Ken is complaining that the director hit him earlier, but the crazy wife comes up and hits him too and yells at him because his cue is up. We see that she's starting to lose it, and we cut, again, to the on-set studio where Mal drops some more exposition about how her mom loses herself in her roles and broke another actor's arm while filming before. I'm sure that's nothing to worry about. Oh wait, I spoke too soon, because now we are at the scene where she wants to kill the final girl for that, quote, scratch on her leg. Man, you think I would remember this from earlier, but it's like I'm watching two different movies. So things continue to go off the rails on the terror train as we reach the point where she goes apeshit, Woolie's gone apeshit, again, and throws the script out the window. She even kicks the director off camera for trying to stop her. Not even throwing the zombie extras at her works, as she just kicks them out of the way, and when the director comes back, she knees him in the groin. The old kick/knee to the groin, another comedy gold moment. Now on the roof with Ken and Mom struggling, she throws him aside right into the crew member that was holding the pole rigging to lift the camera for the overhead final shot. And then the pole rigging goes over the edge and breaks. Whoops. Every crew member tries to stop her, but they are no match for Bruce Lay's boom technique. The director puts her in a sleeper hold, and it's lights out for her, except we know what's coming up. They rig her up with the fake axe on her head to make it look like Ken killed her. Now we are at the shed, and we see that the zombie legs are just that of a crew member holding a sign for Final Girl to pick up the axe outside for the climax. Back in the makeshift studio, with the crane broken, the director and Better Stash, producer, are arguing about the final shot. The director wants to keep it in to show the blood pentagram ritual, while the producer says to just cut it, but the director loses his temper, but quickly apologizes. Hey, as the producer puts it, his average will do. Or as Dance Dance Revolution puts it, practice makes mediocre. Wait, I'm not sure that applies here. Good enough. Just like being average. The director is ready to change the scene, but Mal stops him. She has a plan. See, what it involves is Mo Rutherford, because every time I need a plot fixed, I always want Mo. And we have to get his son Hal to borrow the time machine from his pal Arch, and we go back in time to stop the crane from break. Wait, Arch doesn't own a time machine? What do you mean it belongs to some teen wolf?
Sweaty palms.
As much as Scary Perry would love to be reviewing the movie with a dick hanging out at the end of it,
I do like dick.
we have to stay focused and finish this one first, just like the director has to finish this show. I had to work for it, but I managed to squeeze in the dick joke. We were just a bum fight and Hitler mention away from referencing all the running gags in this one. Back on the roof, the wife comes too for the final showdown between Zombie Ken and the final girl to provide the only scene that breaks the reality of the show being real. because it doesn't make sense. And I even laughed when it happened because that broke the running reality of the show. I'm like, okay, so this is fake. The director quickly pulls her down, and we see that the rest of the cast and crew are forming a human pyramid. And now we see the reason for all the repeat pauses, as the director tells them to halt as one of the crew members keeps slipping off the others, so he needs to give them time to set up the pyramid again. Then we get to see more abuse of Andrew McCarthy's extended family as they fumble the head for the Ken mannequin, but they save it from bouncing out of bounds and toss it back over to the other crew member. Still, he's definitely in the concussion protocol. When will the abuse of McCarthy's family stop? I kept looking at that line on my quick handwritten notes, wondering when somebody was going to bump or hit their head. It turns out it was just the prop hitting the ground. Now she chases the director out of sight to the other part of the roof, where one of the crew uses a tube to suck up and spit blood on her as she pretends to hack him to pieces. He compliments her for finally having real tears. I don't think you could see them under all that blood that is sprayed on her. Ken runs over and takes the place of the crew member that keeps falling, and the director climbs to the top and hoists his daughter on his shoulders, like in the pictures he looked at earlier of her childhood, to film the final shot, and then they roll the fake credits. They managed to hold the pyramid just long enough to film the entire shot before collapsing. Back at the main studio, the lady producer thinks everything went off without a hitch and celebrates. The cast and crew breathe a sigh of relief and all have a good laugh now that it's all over. And we even have a callback to that photo I mentioned, and we zoom out from overhead before cutting to the real credits, where, like The Return of the Living Dead, we just start showing scenes from the movie again. Yeah, it's the third time I could make the joke about reviewing The Return of the Living Dead instead, and the 100th time of reviewing something else. Look, comedy gold involves running a joke into the ground, like Monty Python. To be fair, the credit scenes are more of a behind the scenes of the filming, and not the fictional behind the scenes we just watched, but the real behind the scenes, as you see completely different crew members raiding the props and applying makeup and blood. Clearly, the fictitious behind the scenes isn't the actual footage used in the opening segment one cut. I'm sure you could probably go through and pick out the differences if you've lined them up, but it's pretty clear, especially with the behind the scenes footage they show at the end of the actual crew members and prop people setting up the props and everything. Oh yeah, and the ending shot was achieved using a ladder, not a pyramid. Still, we get a catchy J-pop outro that plays over the ending credits, which is fun. And we roll the credits, and that was one cut of the dead. So before we take our last bite, Scary Perry, you got any fun facts?
Yeah, I got some that are fast, cheap, but average. Most of the cast paid money to be in this movie initially. Where they got a lot of the actors from was an acting and directing workshop, like seminar.
Okay,
so
Man, that's even better. That's like the perfect low-budget technique. Get your actors to pay you instead of you paying them.
The first 37 minutes of the film was shot in one take, but it took 6 takes to get that shot. They had it perfect on the second take, but one of the cameras stopped working during the take. So it took 2 days and 6 shots to get that.
Yeah, I have questions on if they do a one cut. I do have that a little bit in my last bite because there's 2 places that you could easily have done a cut to splice together footage just to give people a breather. It's like, okay, this is a perfect spot where we could take a cut and no one would notice because as long as we leave things the way they are, we could cut, take a break, take a breather, and set up for the rest of the thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think there's 2 spots, and I think when they wipe off the camera lens, and because they're running while he's doing it, that's a perfect spot to do it, because during the scene where the towel covers the whole thing, you could easily cut there, because it's all running. You see them in a different spot as they're running, because it's assumed as he's running and wiping off the camera, they could do it. And the other part they could have done is when the camera's lying on the ground. As long as it wasn't too windy or anything with all the foliage and everything would probably stay in one spot. And you could literally just leave the camera there, hit stop on the record, hit start again when you're ready to pick it back up and start shooting. I'm not saying that they might have did that, but they could have.
So the blood splash...
But continue with the rest.
But the blood splash, I'm reading here, the blood splash on the camera and the hand wiping it off was real. It was not a post-production effect.
No, I understand that, but that's what I'm saying is you could easily at that point, while he's wiping off the camera, and then when he removes the towel, now you splice.
I understand.
You splice the footage so that way it's the same, the new footage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could do it without anybody noticing, how good modern technology is with that.
I got you.
I'm not saying they did it, but those are 2 spots where they could have done it. I would have been much more impressed if it was an actual, considering the runtime's an hour and a half. If the whole thing was an hour and a half, one cut of just people reacting to stuff and zombie attack. But continue.
The film was shot in 8 days total. It was shot in an abandoned water filtration plant in Mito, Japan.
Yep, they do mention that in the film. I just call it a factory because I didn't feel like saying water treatment plant
So this movie,
over and over.
This movie there was some concern later of alleged plagiarism, as you mentioned before. The movie,
What was it called? The Ghost in the...
The Ghost in the Box.
Yes.
It copied many elements of it. So I guess the director of this movie and the director of that movie, they came to an agreement to credit the director of The Ghost in the Box in the movie in this film, like they do.
Because I think it was a play the movie said, or the back of the thing says.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know if it was in movies.
I think it says on here too. This just says inspired by Ghost in the Box. But I think during the credits it says inspired by the play Ghost in the Box. Either way, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I don't think this is plagiarism, but there's a movie in 1992 called Noises Off, American comedy film. And in that movie, it's about a play that's filmed, and it's filmed in 3 different perspectives, in rehearsal, from backstage, and from the audience point of view. So it mimics that. But that wasn't involved with.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
The plagiarism. No, I'm just...
People imitate others all the time, so
it's
not
I know.
unusual.
After this movie, there was a spin-off. It was called One Cut of the Dead spin-off in Hollywood. It was a Japanese TV movie. In that, it was about the director's daughter, Mayo, making a movie, like her father. And then there was another sequel, which was filmed during COVID in 2020. And it was put together with Zoom room meetings, people's own selfie like videos, and I guess dance videos and stuff. I haven't seen it. It's called One Cut of the Dead Mission Remote, and it actually is supposed to be a direct sequel to this movie. It's like an hour, but it's on YouTube. This film was remade in France, and it was called Final Cut. So this movie cost $25,000 to make. It grossed worldwide $127 million, probably a little bit more or less. And so it made box office.
Some of that was the actors paying to be in the movie.
Yes. So it made box office history, earning 1,000 times its budget. And I don't know if that's for a Japanese movie or just a movie overall. Yeah, this movie came out in Japan in 2017, but it was released in the U.S. in 2019.
Yeah, it always happens.
Yeah. As far as critics' rankings, IMDb has it a 7.6 out of 10. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 100% Rotten Tomato score and an audience score of 86%. And those are my factoids.
With that, it's time to take the last bite. One Cut of the Dead is an interesting take, or two, or more, on the zombie comedy genre. The One Cut opening segment is a unique premise, almost like a found footage zombie film. While I knew about the movie and seen reviewers talk about it, I went into this one mostly blind, like the Templars in Tombs of the Blind Dead. Don't worry, I'll spare you from another rather watching random zombie movie joke. Thus, I thought I was watching a serious, i.e. real zombie comedy film, and the first hint I got otherwise was when Crazy Lady popped up with the axe in her head, which clued me in that their world wasn't under attack by real zombies, and they were just acting. So you have this weird horror comedy / mockumentary mashup, and it's pretty fun. The actors are entertaining, with their over-the-top, starring Sylvester Stallone, performances, my favorite of course being the ridiculous director. The music is solid during the suspenseful scenes and the zany making-of scenes, but it is nothing amazing. The same goes for the gore, which is serviceable, plus you see how indie films work within their constraints. And more on that in a moment. While I like the opening one cut and the wacky hijinks of the behind-the-scenes filming part, the middle origin story of preparing to make the film comes out of nowhere and takes the punch out of the film. I'm not sure if you could rework it without ruining how the film shows you the finished product and then slowly reveals the causes of why that happened in a scene, but I feel like there are two completely good premises for movies jammed into one here. You could easily have a behind-the-scenes style film showing you how everything that could go wrong will go wrong, and the hilarious improvisation the cast and crew perform to make it happen, and then you could have another film along the lines of what I mentioned in this review. A crew filming a one-cut zombie movie is attacked by real zombies, but it's all part of the script, until they actually are attacked by real zombies, and then the one cut becomes the found footage of the survivors. I honestly thought that's where the film was headed. I would have been quite happy with that outcome, even though that would have been a little predictable. However, it wasn't meant to be. Now, you may think based on my jokes at the movie's expense during this review that I didn't like this one. Hey, I couldn't help myself. The film provided excellent comedy material. And it might not be a one cut because of the mockumentary stuff tacked on. And despite my gripes, I did enjoy the film. It's fitting that this review releases after our Demon Behind the Glass interview. Check out that interview if you haven't. When I first watched it, I usually recognized that it was an homage to indie filmmaking and guerrilla-style filmmaking and perfectly captures the spirit of it. While certainly exaggerated to the extreme, it offers a glimpse into what indie filmmakers go through when they inevitably have to improvise to bring their vision to life. While rewatching it and finishing my notes after our interview didn't change my rating, it did help me see a moment from One Cut through a new light. You see the director-father watch as his inexperienced daughter, taking those terrifying steps into the adult world, takes her passion and makes it happen as she matures into a competent filmmaker in her own right, and how proud he is of her and what she has become and accomplished by the end. Hey, I bet you weren't expecting a fun music reference in this episode at this point in the last bite, were you? But back to the point, after listening to Jesse Gibor praise his daughter's makeup / effects skills on the set of Demon Behind the Glass, I could hear the pride for his daughter's work in his voice. While my rating for One Cut of the Dead didn't change, it did give me a new perspective to the film, an appreciation to the bonds of family working together, as that very much was a family production, not just on Jesse Gibor's side, but on director Joshua Racine's side. Just by looking at the credits, I saw the Racine last name pop up a few times.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, the timing of this episode couldn't have been more perfect. And to all of you aspiring filmmakers, or those that dream of making movies, YouTube videos, heck, even a podcast like us, or whatever you dream of achieving, I offer you these inspiring words, beginning with one final lyrical reference for Pia Zadora. Time goes by so fast. You've got to have a dream to just hold on. And while you may think it is silly to try and chase those dreams, I can only leave you with these closing words from Outlaw Star. Only one thing can be said. A boy has the right to dream, for those endless possibilities are stretched out before him. We must remember, all men were once boys. And with the emotional, happy stuff out of the way, my overall rating for One Cut of the Dead is 3 pancakes. It's a solid film, fun. I think the greatest zombie comedy since Shaun of the Dead is a bit generous, just because I can't think of too many zombie comedies that came out between this and Shaun of the Dead, other than maybe Zombieland. I'd probably give Zombieland a little bit more of an edge, but this is a fun one. And with that, that's the last bite. So go ahead, Perry, and take your last bite. Oh, and on one other note, comparing the two Asian zombie horror films, I would definitely say I'd like this one better than Train to Busan. Go ahead, take your last bite, Perry.
Well, I ask you, would you...
Is it cracking that top 25 I mentioned? No, but...
Would you recommend this as a watch to people?
Yeah, I gave it 3.
Yeah.
3 or up, that's the point where it's worth a watch.
So watching this movie, I echo a lot of the same sentiments you have. So I thought the acting was really good, especially the director of the movie. And I thought the special effects were really good. It did catch me off guard after it went from the first act to the second act. And then you go into the third act to find how the first act was made. Now, this kind of conundrum. Is this movie, like, I understand it has zombies and blood and killing, but is this movie a horror movie? You know, or is it more a comedy movie?
Right. That's the problem. The first 35 minutes, yes, that is horror, and it is comedic, even though it's still maintaining a serious tone to, you know, the attacks and everything. It's comedic from what's happening on screen with the director and everything. But yeah, it shifts to just like a straight comedy, like behind the scenes filmmaking comedy.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I didn't get it. Like, there's good stuff in it, but just the way it was structured, like, and like I said, the conundrum there, I didn't get it. But I'm not, for people who like this movie, I'm not, you know, begrudging them if it works for them, you know. But it's kind of not for me. I think I need to rewatch this one more time. I really think you need to probably watch this movie and then watch it again. Maybe you'll see more. But then, you know, here comes the thing, the conundrum of, is it a horror? Yes, it's a horror movie, but zombies. At the end of the day, I'm going to agree with you and give it a solid 3 out of 5 cannolis. I do recommend watching it. You might need to watch it twice, but, you know, as far as zombie comedy films, I mean, you're never going to top Return of the Living Dead for me.
Yeah, there's a lot of good zombie comedy
But this
films.
is completely different with its approach.
Yes.
It's still a good film.
Like I said, I was expecting a serious zombie horror comedy like Return of the Living Dead, but with comedic stuff happening in it.
Yeah, yeah.
But then it threw me for a loop.
It doesn't have, like, you know, the Shaun of the Dead stuff, other stuff like that. But it's because nothing's real. But it's a good time. It gets a 3. I think people should know. I mean, it's obviously labeled as comedy, but going in that, it's not going to be scary. I mean, not like Shaun of the Dead is
Yeah,
scary.
it's not meant to be scary.
Yeah, but harkening back, it's still a solid film, albeit different, but I'm going to give it a 3, and I think it's definitely watchable, and yes, I would recommend it to people. So a nice, good, solid 3.
We'll say what works, and what doesn't work. It's kind of the feeling.
It's fast, cheap, but average, It's a famous...
I'd say it's fast, cheap, and good.
No, I'm just joking. Not average. It's fast, cheap, and good.
Anything else to say before we plug and sign off, Scary Perry?
No, I want to thank my brother Michael Perry for recommending this movie. I know my brother, he likes different stuff besides more mainstream, and some of it's really great. And I found some great stuff from my brother, and I love my brother. Yeah, this is not that bad. It's different.
It's fun,
and thank him.
It's one that's been on my radar.
Thank you.
That I've known about and wanted to watch before. So
yeah, thank you for your patronage to our podcast. We hope more to come in the future. People sign up because you too can pick your own movie. And,
at the $10 tier, you get pick a movie. So thanks, Mike.
Yep.
And thanks to our other patrons, Jay Bones, owner of this fine. I don't know if I'd call it fine. I feel like this is a swing and a miss on everything. It's not fast, it's not cheap, and it's not good.
I hear they might be
this establishment.
I hear they might be getting tables in the gas station. You want to go do it over there instead?
I'll pass. Then I won't be able to rag on Delores.
Wait, you see that film crew over there with a human pyramid on top of the gas station? What's going on over there?
I don't know. I think they're getting ready to blow it up again.
They better not be buying all the stuff up because I'm hungry and I like the stuff. Because I don't get no food in this damn place.
Thanks to our other patrons, Jay Bones and AJ Sabino. As always, go to patreon.com/themadpancaker, and we got 3 different tiers that you can choose from. Gives you access to polls too. So we have Patreon polls. We haven't had an exclusive Patreon poll, but any polls that we do public and Patreon at the same time combined, those votes count for double. So your vote gets counted twice. More on that in a bit. Be sure to check out the voicemail. Go to themadpancaker.com and you can leave us a voicemail there. Plus, you can read my blog post, my short stack blog reviews of movies that I like to do. This year's been a bloody theme. The latest one was Bloody Moon, I think, was the last one I just did, if I remember correctly.
I think so.
The 2 most recent are Bloody Moon, and I think the most recent one is actually The Bloody Pit of Horror.
So you did The Bloody Pit of Horror.
Yes, The Bloody Pit of Horror.
And then earlier this month, you did Bloody Moon.
Bloody Moon was the latest one. Okay, I was right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bloody Moon, and then, the previous one before that was Bloody Pit of Horror. Feel free to check those out, and then got another bloody-themed horror movie name review coming up shortly. Feel free to leave us comments on Spotify, and then be sure to give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast app of choice. It really helps the podcast grow. I think soon-ish, because it's a lot easier now, but there won't be any actual video element to it. It'll just be audio only, but the podcast episodes will be on YouTube because they simplified a lot of that since they got rid of Google Podcast. I'm not going to make any promises on the exact date, just like for our next review coming up. So now, normally, I kind of have a bit of a sign-off where I hint at the next movie we're going to review, but as I mentioned, we got a poll going on right now, and I'm not sure if it will still be going on by the time this episode airs. As is tradition, we do a poll for August, which I call Awful August. We choose a horror film with a notoriously bad reputation to try and review, or isn't looked upon favorably. And being that this will be our 3rd Awful August episode, this time it's going to be Awful August 3D.
Uh-oh.
So all the choices are 3D horror movies that are notoriously bad or underwhelming. So potentially join us next time where we could potentially be reviewing a Dario Argento film where there's a horrible-looking giant CGI praying mantis and his daughter Asia's boobs, because reasons. Or potentially join us next time when we could be talking about how Jaws goes to SeaWorld. Or the third option, potentially join us next time where Leatherface does his thing, cuz. Or the fourth option, where we could potentially be reviewing, there's no goodwill way to put this one, so where Amityville goes 3D. And I'm not talking about Amity Island from Jaws. This is a different Amity 3D movie. So until next time, check please.
Delores!
International House of Horror.